Well, I guess we're live. Didn't even know I was going to wait a minute, but good morning, Giants. Sunday morning. Want to tell you what's on my mind. I want you to imagine for a minute. Imagine that you can't see, you can't hear, you can't speak. What would your life be like? You have no language, have no words. You don't know what things are that you're experiencing. And so there's no narrative in a sense, no language for that narrative. So, what would your life be like? Imagine that for a minute. Uh, Deep in thought this morning about stories and why stories are important to the human race and why we use them. The oldest known story is the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's about 21,000 BC. Predates the Iliad by about 1,500 years. Always been kind of a part of human history and makeup and genetics and biology is to have stories. And so it makes me wonder, and I'm learning about it as we go here because I'm curious about stories and how they impact us. And why are they so important to human survival that we've kept them for that long? And so as you think about that, imagine not having any of it, no sight, no sound, no ability to speak. That's what occurred with Helen Keller. She had no experience for what was occurring in her life until somebody taught her how to do that. She didn't know what water was until somebody taught her that cool, cold something running over her hands was water. And then she had a story for that. What stories do is they allow us to imagine worlds without number. I mean, there's no limit to what we can imagine. We can put ourselves in situations. Someone likened it to a flight simulator. That we step into this space where we can recreate a scenario in our brain and then live through it without actually experiencing it and determine if it fits for our life or not and potentially change our path. I think about why do we hang on to the stories that we do? Why do we have the narratives that we have? On my website, Clear Path Training, I talk about changing your story and changing your life. The narratives, what happens is the brain just is looking for security and safety. And so it goes for the familiar. If it knows that doing something over and over is going to create a similar situation to what we've experienced, then it will likely keep us stuck in that loop. Now, many of us, when we push outside of that, we start to feel anxiety. And so we retreat back to our stories. We retreat back to the familiar. I learned this morning that about 60% of our conversations are around gossip. This is a little off topic here. But if you think about most of what you talk about, it's about what's going on over here, what's going on with this person or this situation or that situation. We want to be up to date on what's going on in our environment. It would make sense that would be part of our narrative. And so being aware of it, the challenge is to not get stuck into that cycle of just having our information given to us and not doing anything with it. The goal of the brain is to take it and tweak it and create something amazing out of it. Einstein, for example, his neocortex was larger than most humans. What he had done is he'd taken all the information that he'd put into his brain and he started creating ideas from it. And that's what the brain has the ability to do, is to take the information that we've gathered and to create with it. My story, The Giants and the Smalls, is an analogy that takes a person on the path of becoming a giant in their life. And I use a story form, but if you could imagine, if I had written this story with no conflict, Rit just grows up and becomes a giant, it's easy. There would be nothing to resolve. And so as a reader, you would read the book and there would be no connection with it because there's nothing to resolve. There's no surprises, nothing to look for. I did sleep in this morning. Renee, good morning. I don't have a set time on these. It's just when I get up. But, think about it. If you enjoy a story, a lot of times you enjoy that story because you don't know what's going to happen next. And so, but at the same time, our brains want to know what happens next. So we take that information in and we're trying to predict the future. We're constantly looking out like, I need to know what's going to happen tomorrow. Otherwise, I can't survive. Now, in some cases, that would be beneficial. But what happens is we depend so much on knowing about the future that we separate from today. Good morning, Stevie. Uh, we take the information in and line it up with what we already know, and then we try and predict and create from that. Now, when you get stuck in a cycle of anxiety or depression, a lot of that is that there's no hope for the future. There's no hope that what's occurring right now will change. And so we get into the cycle of these stories in our brain that are familiar, very familiar, but we keep repeating them and we keep repeating them. And so we have to get to this point where we take that story and we start to twist it. We start to rewrite it, and we start to come up with a new narrative that allows us to step out of that loop, that stuckness that we experience. But the beauty of stories is that they're innate. They are in us, and they are powerful at getting us to create change. And the reason for that is we can put that information into our brain, imagine what it would be like to live that experience or live in that world, and then create from it. And we have an opportunity to change our path, or we can choose to just stay on the familiar, even if it's uncomfortable. I look at stories from Gilgamesh to Homer to the Bible, to even Jesus talking in parables. There's something about those messages. Every story that you go back on that's been amazing, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. There's just this adventure, and there's challenge, and you wonder, and what would it be like to live in that world? That's the power of our brain. We have the capacity to take in this information, to manipulate it up here, manipulate it, twist it, look at it from every angle, and then take it and implement it into our lives, to take that information and to create something that didn't exist before. You look at the technology that we have, that was imagined. Somebody imagined that. They got some sort of insight, some information, were inspired, and came up with this idea from that information and created and manipulated it up here, and came out of that brain and out of that thought into creation. Yesterday I talked about chaos and pulling from the threads of life. Just you have all this information available to you that you can pull from, but we tend to stick to the familiar. And so maybe what I would challenge you to do today is to start looking at ways that you can take that information that's in your head and create it differently, to create a different outcome, a different ending, choose your own adventure kind of thing, where you take that information and you put it in there and you jumble it up, and then you put it together, kind of like a pile of Legos. You just put it together and you create something amazing for your life. Rather than looking for the fear and trying to stay in security and safety and trade that thriving for surviving. Instead of doing that, take the information and create with it. Go out there and make something giant with it, something different for your life, even in small degrees. I saw Stephen McGee came on here. He talked about small steps can make giant differences, giant changes in your life. Even small changes in your story, small changes in your narrative can have a huge impact on your future. And so making those changes today, taking that information in, allowing the emotions to run and be intense while you're taking in new information and creating from it, to allow those to be present and then still go out and make something amazing out of life. You're not meant to not have fear. Okay. You're not meant to not feel sad. If you were meant to not feel those things, you wouldn't feel them. And so allowing them to be present is what allows us to move forward, is have those be present, but also use your neocortex, use your hippocampus to take that stored information and create with it, to go out there and make something new for your life, while feeling insecure and afraid and sad and all those feelings that a lot of us humans feel. I talked about yesterday, there's a post that I did called The Struggle Bus. I talk about the analogy of the bus and how emotions are passengers on the bus, and they're allowed to be there. And if we allow them to do their thing and just come and go, they come on the bus and get off the bus just pretty consistently, and it's not a big deal. But when we engage with them and we get spun up in them, we get on what's called the struggle bus, and we're no longer driving where we want to go. We're struggling. We're in a loop. And so what I'd offer is to just sit with those emotions and let them be present. It's okay. Just let them be there. and choose where you want to drive your bus. So take the information in, create stories, listen to news stories, read the giants and the smalls. I'll post a link to the reading of it so you can watch that today. But imagine, the beauty of it is you get to imagine your world, and you get to imagine a path for yourself which inspires you to do something more with your life. And so I hope you guys take that information, manipulate it in your own way, create in your own world something that's different, that's not there today, and to go after it, even when you're afraid. And what I could tell you is that things will change. They will change. They'll be different from what you see today. As you guys know, as I do these thoughts, I don't have a plan. There's no schedule. I just, whatever's on my mind. If I'm listening to a book, I'm going to talk about that. If I have a thought, I'm going to post. I mean, you'll see my Facebook page. I just post. It's just the information. I'm just so intrigued by our world and what the possibilities are. While people are hung up and caught up on the fear, I'm learning. I'm out there like finding out how things work and why does this do that, and constantly questioning our experience. And I would invite you to do the same. Just question everything. Don't act like you have the answers. I don't have the answers. Nobody has the answers. There's no book of life that says that has all the answers in it. It doesn't exist. So go create your own. Go create your own answers. So you guys make it a giant day. If you have comments or thoughts, please share them. I'd love to see those. We got 4 days left on our Kickstarter campaign. And honestly, I'm blown away, you know. Good morning, Jishnu. I'm blown away because we're only $1,000 away from our goal. We started this at the start of the pandemic, and we're ending it toward the end of this thing. And it was probably the worst timing, you know, according to people. They said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm going to push through to the end. I don't know. Just feel like it's time to get this book out to the world." And here we are. We're only $1,000 away today from our goal. It's amazing. You guys are a part of that. I appreciate it. Just, you know what? Go create. There's nothing holding you back. Failure is not a guarantee. Success isn't a guarantee. So go create. Just do whatever you feel today. Love it. Love you guys. Make it a giant day. And I'll see you on the next video.